Welcome to KimAppa.
You are such
Uh,
a dog. You are such a dog.
um, big
The
thanks to the
one
Cricket
thing
Animation
that
channel
that
on Instagram. Uh,
nope, nope.
I
I
was
don't approve of that intro.
I was talking to them and they were like, "Yeah, you can use some of our stuff, if you tag us and stuff." And I was like flicking through, and then suddenly I came up with you nicking off, and I was like, "Perfect." Hey, to be fair, I'm the level lock in this situation, so I think it's okay. I think that's an appropriate use of our talents there.
You're terrible, dude. You're a terrible human being.
I
No,
am
I'm
a
kidding.
terrible human being. Let's talk about some
Listen,
people who
please.
are better human beings. Certainly at the moment, anyway. I'm very interested to know how you feel about this. You and I have like hundreds of friends in South African cricket, right? Like,
Mm,
you were just at the
mm,
SA20, and I've been working with South Africans, in the media and with teams and everything, for years, and knowing all these people. It's kind of hard to really fully articulate how much the not winning a world title affected them, right? There was like this there was like this holdback of like this. They're quite, arrogant and sure of themselves and confident in so many ways. And then there was like this incredible cloud above their head. And you see
yeah.
the fans celebrating the other day, and that, and it was a relief celebration as much as anything else. It really has affected South African cricket in such deep ways that there was almost a fatalist part of it, wasn't there? Where they were like, yeah, we can produce good cricketers, but we can't do this. And it feels like hopefully they've broken through that. And it was wonderful to watch all their fans enjoy that in real time at Lords.
Oh yeah, without an iota of a doubt. I think that was a phenomenal win and a convincing one. Just the way they played, I thought was fantastic, and I agree with you. I think that this has been something that has weighed on them for decades now,
Mm,
and you could see the relief. For me, I think the one that said it all for me was Dale Stains's emotions. Even though
mm.
he's sitting back in South Africa with his test cap by his side, and you could see just through his silence what he's been through, and weighing that, carrying that burden, on him for through his career, to finally feel that weight of that burden drop away. It can be such a huge relief. You could hear it when Keshav Maharaj was speaking. You could hear it
Mm.
in the celebrations of Temba. Like he was so classy about the whole thing. I thought he was incredible, just the way he held himself, and how he spoke and how he articulated everything that they've experienced and they're experiencing at this point in time. I'm so happy for them, and couldn't have happened to a nicer bunch of people.
It was incredible watching Temba on the balcony when the team is just around him, like cheering and jumping on each other, and they're really excited. And
Yeah.
Temba's in the chair, and he's so short. I'm not even sure they saw him for the first couple of minutes. And there's a little bit of outpour of emotion, but then he just starts clapping as if like someone's just run a two, right? Like it's so, you have to understand the kind of person that Temba Bavuma is. And there have been more talented teams than this South African team. There have been more talented captains and players than Temba Bavuma. But he does have that sort of balance that a lot of the other, like, for all of Graham Smith's greatness, sometimes Graham Smith would let himself get away a little bit, and Faf was someone who could get very emotional and everything else. Temba, considering what he's been through, is just a really balanced guy. And you could see that on the balcony where everyone else is celebrating, and he's like, "Oh, we've done it." And it reminds me of the Indian captain at what was that, the Oval, when he was asleep. Ajit Wadekar, when
Mm.
he was asleep during that, where it's just like everyone else is going to party. I'm still going to be the neutral one and just handle it. And you watch him walking around the boundary as well. It's the same thing of just being like, "We did it. Let's fine. Let's do this respectfully. Let's do it correctly." Like
Mm.
he's such a thorough professional, isn't he?
Yeah, a great ambassador of South African cricket, in my opinion. I think just held himself incredibly well, and I think someone who's been through quite a bit, yeah. And if you look at everything that he's been through, from white ball cricket to red ball cricket,
Mm.
and how he's continued to perform in red ball cricket, especially in the last couple of years, he's been absolutely phenomenal, hasn't he? And you probably shed a little bit more light on the numbers for us, but I know that he averages close to 60, if I'm not wrong, um,
I
in the
think
last
he
couple of
averaged
years.
over 60 in this World Test Championship. It wasn't a lot of games. I think it was only eight
Yeah,
games because he quite
yeah,
often injured us, and he got injured in this game again, right? Like, but yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I've always found him fascinating as a batter because I think South Africa, because they were pushing him, and they were pushing him partly because of his skin color, because of what that meant to South African culture, but they were also pushing him because they actually knew how good he was. So he was kind of pushed
Yeah.
twice, right? And the issue is that he should have just started an ODI cricket where he's perfectly suited to knocking the ball around in ODI cricket, exactly how South Africa top order wants to be. And instead,
Yeah.
ODI cricket was like the last thing they got to with him. I mean, he was the T20 captain. He shouldn't even be involved in that format, right? Like, they
Yeah.
made so many mistakes with him along the way. But you look at him now, there aren't many test batters in the world that you think they're going to get runs in most situations. He's not far off that list anymore. And he's a number 4.
Yeah.
And do you remember when he first started, he was like a number 6, and everyone was like, he's probably not strong
Mm.
enough to bat number 6. Now, no one has any arguments with him batting at number 4 on that side.
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah, absolutely not. And I think he's someone who's constantly worked in his game. I remember maybe a couple of years ago, he and I were having a conversation about his game and his approach to, batting in India, and just discussing, how what goes through his head. And you can say he's an intense individual who wants to succeed, and he wants to do well for South Africa. And he understood the weight of leading South Africa with all the nuances that it has involved with its cricket. So I'm exceedingly happy for him as a player, as an individual, and I think just his celebration was just really, really classy. And I think it is what, say, cricket needs right now, a little bit more of the gentlemanliness.
I tell you what I loved is, you and I have been at a lot of games where teams win. And if Australia had won,
Mm.
I would have looked up at the celebration, but I would have hardly, paid any attention, right? And, I've
Yeah.
been to franchise wins and finals days and, all these different wins. And you and I get a little bit, we're not as quite emotionally involved in it because we've seen it so many times at the ground.
Mm.
But like, I was watching their celebration, and firstly, I thought it was incredible that Temba had the mace and he was ahead of them, and there was no like jockeying for the mace or whatever. It was like they knew that they were like, they knew what he'd been through and how he'd helped them get to this level, and they were like, no, he gets this moment. But the other thing was, I don't know if you saw it, there was like 100 people on the ground, right? And
Yeah.
the people that were on the ground are the same people who are the support mechanisms for these teams when they lose. And we don't we quite often, and you know this, at the last match of a series or after a final, quite often the kids and the families will go out, but they'll go out like an hour and a half after, right? When no one's around, right? Like, we see it all. The amount of times I've watched, international cricketers play with their kids, but it's well after all the fans have gone. And this time they just went, no, there were like grandmothers out there, there were friends out there, there was, all these different
Yeah.
people, all the support staff was involved. And you're like, think about, and this is just, we're talking about one generation here, but we're talking about since 1992 onwards, those sorts of people have been the ones that those players have had to turn to when South Africa has stuffed up, right? When it's all gone to shit, that's who they've turned to. I kind of love that they let them go out on the ground and do their lap of honor with them. Like, they were all
Yeah.
together. It was one of my favorite lap of honors I've ever seen.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think just the way, I think some of this, I saw some parts of the celebration where the mace was individually handed over to the support staff individually for them
Yeah.
to celebrate it themselves as their achievement, which I thought was a very, very nice touch, and obviously the families being allowed early was a nice touch by, I don't know, the Lord's management perhaps, or MCC, as in ICC.
Yeah, I
as
don't
in,
know.
I'd imagine it. Yeah, some of them, whoever did that, I think it was really cool. Because a lot of times in a lot of these victories, and I think he even mentioned this when it came to RCB, and was that, the families actually go through as much of the emotional baggage as much as the players do, and oftentimes they're not given the credit for the support that they have shown to the players, right? And I think it needs to be celebrated with the families, and needs to be celebrated with the people who support these players, who go out in the field and try to do it for their team and for their country. And it's really nice. I think this makes it so much more inclusive, and this is what sport is all about, right? It's about trying to be as inclusive as possible. And the emotional baggages that partners go through, the emotional burdens that they carry, to see their partners navigate through difficult times and not having the power to do anything, to just sit on the side and just be there for them and be available for them when they need it, right? Not enough credit is given to the partners, and I'm so happy that the partners and the families got their absolute due in this case.
I also like that Sean Pollock was in the press box afterwards, and he was still cheering on the Proteus, and like it might have been a little dig at me as he walked past, but it was still something that he was definitely thinking about. And we have seen at times in certain cricket cultures, this doesn't always happen, but it does happen at times where the former players are like, "Wow, our team was better than this," and they got the best of the toss and the pitch went. We look at our team compared to this, right? And it was like I didn't see any of that with South Africa so far. I've seen the opposite, where they're just like, thankfully, after all that, they have done this, right? Like they're almost thankful towards the team. And I remember, seeing Graham Smith and Sean Pollock walk across the ground and enjoy the moment, right? And they haven't played in this, but it all plays a part. And I wrote in my article of like you go back to the early people involved in South African cricket. They've all played a part in getting here. Like we all stand on the shoulders of giants, right? And it was great that there wasn't that bitterness that we sometimes see, where they were just like, no, we just needed one. We all know we should have got one by now, but we just needed one, and we're very thankful to the people who gave us that.
Yeah, without a night of a doubt, man. I think it's just so cool to have seen Sean Pollock celebrate the way he did. You even saw, Graham Smith. You saw some of the English players being ecstatic for the South Africans, right? Even the Kevin Peterson looked very buoyant when South Africa won it, and
And
he
Trotty as
certainly
well.
has. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like
I
both
I
of
think
them, like, and I think that tells you because they are part of that culture, right? Even if they ended up
culture.
outside of it.
Yeah, yeah. And the culture of sport in South Africa is so rich. It is
Mm.
so rich. I'm telling you, I think people need to visit South Africa when there's a sporting tournament or a sporting when sport is actually happening there, and visit and experience the culture there, because it's so rich and it's so much fun. As in, I remember I just like recently went and did some broadcasting in South Africa for the
Mm.
SA20, and boy, it was after a really long time, Kimbo, I actually experienced cricket for the sport that it is and the fun that it brings to the people. It is so much fun, man. It is so much fun. You have the young, you have the toddlers dancing, playing around on the
Mm.
hills, and then you have the beautiful women there, the good-looking men there. Then you have the old people there, just like having a beer and having the most
The
fun time.
Bry, the
The
Bry coming
braai
up
going
off.
on the side. Oh my
Yeah,
God, it's amazing. It's
I
it's such a fun atmosphere.
someone asked me recently like what my top 10 moments in cricket grounds were, and I went through a bunch of important games, but one of my favorite moments was I was at the Wanderers for a game when the choir came in, and the choir
Mm,
was packed. And it wasn't just the choir, but the choir was incredible, and the crowd was singing with the choir. And you had the whole one. And Wanderers is just such a great ground to begin with, right? You had
yeah,
the choir singing and everything, and then we went out. And I remember again, I was probably like a month and a half into the tour. I was missing my family, like all that normal stuff. And I'm walking around, and I was like, and I'd been to South Africa my first time in 2003. And it was still really divided. Like you really felt the
yeah,
division between the country.
yeah,
And then coming out of that game at the Wanderers, there were young people, there were old people, there were people of every different skin color, there were people with all different kinds of accents and dressing habits. There was hipster crowd, right? There were, cricket nerd crowd. It was just all there. And I was just like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be. It was like one of my favorite feelings. And so then being there yesterday, when this happened and seeing some of that same thing. And then I went out in the garden afterwards in the nursery because I had to go film. And when I was going out to the nursery, there was this woman in front of me, and it was packed, man. There were South Africans everywhere, right? And there was a woman in front of me. She
yeah.
started screaming across, and about 40 meters away, she just sprinted across and just jumped on this guy. And she was like, I haven't seen you since school, right? Like there's
Oh
something
wow.
within that culture that is just, it's so powerful. And,
Yeah,
and it's great that they had that moment because we've been there for all the others, right? We were just at the Heinrich
yeah.
Klaassen Hardik Pandya moment, right? It wasn't that long
I
ago that
know.
roll off took that catch, right? Like we've lived through
Yeah.
everything else, and to see them, finally come together like that, I just thought it was great. And the whole test, even when they were behind, South African crowd was incredible through this.
They were, and they always have been, haven't they? As in, I think
Mm.
they've always been an incredible crowd, and they're very giving as a people. I think like I've experienced as a player and even as a broadcaster, you can tell that they want everyone to just have their fun, and they're watching it
Yeah.
purely for the fun of the enjoyment of the sport and the love of the sport, which I think who goes across different sport, right, for them. and they're truly passionate about sport, man. In that nation, it's so much fun. I would highly recommend it for any sport lover to just go and experience the sporting culture of South Africa. And I think in general, people in Africa are really, really really cool. I have a similar experience in Kenya, in Zimbabwe. I think the people are really soft spoken and really cool, right? And I think they're very kind people by nature. And I think it's always something that I look forward to every time I have to go to Africa or any part of Africa, to be honest.
No, agreed. I just think it was wonderful. It's actually, because we talked about it quite a bit with Zimbabwe a couple of weeks ago, right? Like, it feels like my last couple of weeks have been like a Southern African adventure, right? Like, of really reconnecting with that part. And, it's the joy. The Zimbabwe one felt like all Zimbabweans in Europe ended up in Nottingham, right? And it didn't matter what happened with the game. And this one felt like all the South Africans in the UK came together again. But it was a little bit different, right? Because this is like, there was a hope there, but they were also, as I said, connecting with each other again. It's a beautiful thing to see it happen. And as you said, they celebrate cricket in such a different way than others. Let us talk about, though, some of the other players. We talked about Temba. We both said beforehand that Rabada would be pretty handy. He turned out to be a very handy. You personally smashed Rabada everywhere. I can go through the stats in a little bit, but no, you don't. No, you're okay against him. He's only ever got you out once in T20 cricket. He's only got you out once. You average 40. Where are we here? You average 40 odd against him. So you do okay against Rabada. But specifically, I think if you compare him to Cummins and Bumrah, I think they have more tools available to them to be able to dismiss you than Rabada does. But Rabada's single tool is so he's so relentless, and he's so always at you that it's like he almost overcomes the fact that he doesn't have as many tools as other guys do. And we saw it again. He's just at you the whole time. He really is a brilliant bowler, isn't he, in so many ways.
Well, even against left-handers, right? As in, you were saying, his records against the left-handers aren't the greatest. Hey, he's gotten worn out a bunch of times, and you were like, and then we were corrected also by someone who came on the super chats later that his last 2 years, his numbers against the lefties have been great, and he stayed true to that, didn't he? As in, he was just relentless, like you said, just stuck to his guns, just kept prodding away at that third and fourth stump line, and just induced the edges, which I think was the kind of advantage that South Africa needed to take advantage, especially in that first morning. He was just fantastic.
Why do you think, obviously he's fast, but he's not unwritten or Kia fast, right? He gets the ball to move, but he doesn't look as in control of the moving ball as, someone like Vernon Philander or some of the other South African bowlers. What is it when you're facing him that makes him so sort of hard to handle? Like, what is it that is bothering the batters?
So I think one of it is the fact that when he bowls heavy balls, if you know what I mean. So they come and kind of thump onto your bat. It's not something that you can get behind and assess. It almost always catches you by surprise how quick he's off the wicket and how heavy the balls are. You can feel like there's a lot of what's the word? Intensity behind the ball, right? Every time he bowls one. And I think you
feel the vibration when you hit it, right?
100% all the time, right? And with white ball cricket, I don't think he's nailed his lengths as much as he's nailed his red ball cricket lengths, and he just hits that area so well, and he's really accurate as well, right? It's not like he's spraying the ball around a lot. Like, he's just there and there and there and there and just there all the time. And if you're there with that sense of heaviness behind the ball, it's always going to make you feel like I gotta be as relentless, and I gotta match his intensity to be able to sustain this spell, so to speak. And I think with white ball cricket, one of his challenges is that he bowls two lengths. Either he's too full or he's too short. He doesn't trust his good length enough. And I think if he goes to trusting his good length enough, I think he'll be exceptionally good in white ball cricket as well, especially in T20 cricket. I think he's a little bit more reactive as compared to red ball. He's a lot more proactive, and he knows what he's doing, and he's kind of...
He reminds me a little bit of Cummins, early Cummins in white ball cricket, in that everything he does in red ball cricket works, and so he just wants to bring that over, and he hasn't found the method. Right, like you see that sometimes. Josh Hazlewood's another really good example of someone who just couldn't quite find the method that he needed in that other format. And it's hard when you're that good. You're like, this should just work, right? Like it should just go over, but it doesn't always. And he's not always searched for that. But even within that, probably because, as you said, the intensity of the ball, especially at the death, he gets a lot of wickets at the death because even when he bowls a length where you can smash him, there's always a chance he's going to hit the splice and go straight up in the air, right?
Yeah. 100% all the time, and that's one of the risks of going after him. But I think he goes for that full length quite a bit at the depth, and I don't see him utilizing the slower ball as much as I see the other fast bowlers use it, especially in the depth. You can attest to that with your stats work and all that.
Yeah.
And I think.
He doesn't have a great slow ball.
ball.
I mean, that's the best. What you're basically saying is he just doesn't have that level, does he? Whereas even someone like Nokia worked out how to bowl a good slow ball for a little while and has a few. Yeah. And also Nokia had like 3 different ones. So even if one wasn't working, he can move over. Whereas Rabada's got the cutter.
The other one.
And if the cutter's not working for him, he kind of gets hammered. Whereas in Test cricket, as I said, it doesn't matter. He's probably, after Vernon Philander, might be the most, or Neil Wagner as well, the most, exactly what he's going to do, right, in Test cricket. There's no subtlety with what he's going to do, but you still have to handle it. Whereas Bumrah and Cummins and are a little bit, more varied with that, where they're going to change things up. So he's probably more like a sort of more ferocious version of maybe someone like Hazlewood in that way.
Yeah, 100%. I think Hazlewood also is a very underrated T20 bowler now. I think Hazlewood, since he's played for CSK, I think he's figured out his T20 game. And those lengths, and I think even in this Test match he bowled really well with the red ball.
Yeah, I think Hazlewood eventually has got there. Let's talk about the pitch a little bit, and no, actually, before we get to the pitch, I want to talk about the fact that I think there are probably 2 times when South Africa were less than a 10% chance of winning this game. And if you go back throughout the history of South African cricket, like the chances of them coming back from one of those is pretty unlikely. But I think when they were, 32 for 4 or whatever it was, on day one at one stage. And then again, when you can look at it, when Australia were none for 28, but also when Rickleton went out. All of those times, like the odds had Australia as massive favourites, and everyone was thinking the same thing. No one was thinking the other way. It shows you that this, even if the conditions slightly favored them in this game, and we could talk about that in a moment, the fact that they went about it from that perspective, it's still, we have seen South African teams crumble when there has never not been anywhere near as much pressure, right? Do you know what I mean? We've seen them crumble when there's like the slightest amount of pressure. They were under it in this game on 3 different occasions, and all 3 occasions fought back.
Yeah, and I thought they fought back really well as well. And the most uncanniest guys stood up and said, okay, I'm going to do it at this point in time. Have you gotten stuck, buddy? Oh, you're there. No, you're there. You're there.
Am I?
No, you're not. You're not. And you're fine. You're fine. I saw you there not blinking. I was like, oh, probably his internet is acting up again. But
I'm part robot.
I was talking about. Yeah, I might half believe you there, actually. Knowing how heartless you are sometimes. Lungi Ngidi was such a breath of fresh air in that first innings at the back end and the second innings as well, and Marco Jansen as well. Just hitting the right areas, being patient with it, contributing with his fielding when the bowling wasn't really coming through as well as it should have, and then for me it was an overall team effort. And you could just see the South African, and you could feel it, I think, when South Africa were batting second, that they were willing to die on that pitch and just say, not going to give you anything. Just going to get there. I'm going to get to a place where I feel set. And once I'm set, I'm just going to be here. I'm not going to let it go. Not a chance. And that's how you saw the fight from everyone.
Also, it's quite interesting. So there's obviously a lot of people saying, well, the pitch changed and South Africa got the best of the pitch. And they did. I don't think anyone could deny that. They probably batted on it the 2 times it was batting the best. And all things considered, they did really well. But people have kind of forgotten that Australia had plenty of chances to close this game out. right? Like
Yeah.
Steve Smith goes out to Aiden Markram's bowling, right? The first specialist batter in Test cricket to ever be dismissed by Aiden Markram, who was averaging 80 at that point. I think he's a slightly better bowler than that, but he is what he is, right? And then, they were 28 without loss. Like you just talked about Ngidi's effort. Ngidi was terrible. Ngidi looked like he hadn't bowled with a red ball for 2 years in the first innings, right? And he has one great spell in the second innings, but it's a long spell, and he really did well to be able to fight back. Whereas Australia kept getting in front and allowing South Africa to come back. So it's all well and good to say that South Africa had the best of conditions, but because because Australia had plenty of chances to close out the game, it would have been quite easy for them to just fold up, and everyone would have said, "Well, Australia's just the better side here." So I'm 100% with you. The pitch is interesting though, because the pitch is not just about this match. It's also about the 5-test series that's going to come. It's also about the Zimbabwe game. These England pitches, Robbie, are nuts, right? 24 wickets in 2 days, and then 4 wickets the day after. And there's almost no point bowling your spinner to start this test match. And then by the end, you're just like, you probably needed an extra spinner, maybe if you're Australia, like, to be able to do that, because the wicket just completely died. I wouldn't say it was brilliant for spin either, but there wasn't much in it for the pace bowlers. It's a really weird summer over here, man, because, Sikandar Raza bowling, 20, 25 overs on day one of a test match as well. We're seeing it. There's a little bit in the wicket, and the minute that moisture goes, it almost goes dead, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But that's the thing about wickets, I think, in England, is that once there's no moisture there, it just becomes the absolute best batting track that you can actually bat on. It becomes an out-and-out belter for batters, and you can really trust the pitch and play. And when you can actually trust the pitch and play, on days, or say just in England, when you can trust the pitch and play, there's so much that you can get out of yourself as a batter, because that one aspect is just taken out of the equation, and you have so much more mind share to be able to put a lot more options and present a lot more options and see the merit becoming larger to much more shots, because that one big aspect of, okay, how is the ball going to come off the wicket here, is just taken out of the equation completely.
Oh, I want to ask you a cricket question as well. The Steve Smith catch is obviously he dropped it, and I think what happened was he was kind of for a moment forgot he had the helmet on, so he put his hands up, and I think the ball might have actually got caught. Sorry, his finger might have got caught in his helmet and everything else. But explain to non-cricketers, and I know you're a keeper, but explain to non-cricketers how hard it is, because I've never seen anyone practice catching at first slip with a helmet on that close to the bat before. And the problem with first slip is there are only 2 options you ever get at first slip: ankles or at your head height, right? Like they either drop on you at first slip or they take off. And he's so close there. From a technical point of view, that was, if Smith had pulled that catch off, it would have looked easy, but it would not have been easy at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you basically are made to wear the helmet simply because you want to protect yourself from getting hurt. And in that position, you're like, you're taking a risk, saying that, okay, I'm going to stand in front. I'm going to hope that the ball comes waist high or slightly below the waist, so that I have enough time to just get behind the ball. But with your your cup going on the reverse, it takes a little bit more time. So I suppose it's a chance, and you know that it's going to be a chance. If it comes off, great, but more often than not, it doesn't.
Yeah, it was funny because he was practicing the day before, that morning in the helmet, but he was practicing doing it at second slip, and we see that quite a bit. Him and Ollie Pope, and we've seen Ben Stokes do it. I think Rahane might have done it a couple of times for India as well, where they put the helmet on and they get quite close in at second and third slip. I don't think I've ever seen anyone practice or field that close at first slip with a helmet on before. It's very, very different, and I think the problem with that wicket was the odd ball was coming through, and lots of balls were dying off the surface, so you don't even know what pace it's going to come at. If they're all slow, you can you do the Ian Botham thing, then don't you? Get as close as possible, and you're like, it might get past me. But when some are quick and some are slow, it's like, good luck.
Yeah, what can you do, honestly?
Okay, I want to ask you when you felt comfortable that South Africa were going to win in this chase, Robbie.
I have to say I was a little worried after Aiden got out. But when I saw the determination of each player who came in after him, they were right on top of it, and you could see how they batted in partnerships and they really supported each other in the sense that um, even in the measured way in which Aiden ran his runs when batting with Temba, after Temba's dismissal, the other batters coming through, showing the fight from the first ball and willing to do anything to just take the team over the line. That is what I reckon comes out of just absolute trust in each one of the players who are sitting inside, uh, and absolute faith in yourself that, okay, I'm going to do this for my team, and it's not a burden anymore. I think they've shifted the meaning of what it is. I don't think the choker tag is something that they take very seriously. Although at one point it probably was a talk within the dressing room, but I don't think they take that very seriously now.
No, I think it's quite interesting. So my son was watching back at home, and he obviously knows about South Africa's history, but he hasn't lived it like you and I have, right? And so
Yeah.
he's sending messages going, "They're going to do this easy," and I'm just like, maybe it's just my entire life of having watched South Africa. But I was like, because I started to do the massive like, when's the new ball coming? Oh, that's a bit awkward, right? Like. And then you see Markram play the big shot in the over before the new ball, and I'm like, oh god, he's going to get caught at deep mid wicket here or get bowled, and then they're going to have a new batter with Hazelwood with the new ball. It's funny that if you go back, so I've done a video that'll come out tomorrow where you have a look. There's a couple of small things. There was a couple of balls that kept low in a row from very early on, and then a little bit later on in a line over. There's obviously Constance's catch. There's the Steve Smith drop. There's a couple of other small things that they're actually, for a 280 chase, they were more in control than you would expect. And if you look at that low bounce in the 8th over and then in the 22nd over, you're thinking by the 50th over, there's going to be consistent low bounce.
It's going to be much worse.
It never really came, did it?
No, it didn't. And especially against that bowling lineup, isn't just the fact that 280 was chased against that bowling lineup, which easily is one of the most well-rounded bowling lineup you will see in a long time. I think they just detached themselves from the result of each ball, and just said, okay, you know what? This ball kept low. The next ball kept low. But I'm going to play the next ball like it's going to bounce well. That anticipation, the intent to commit to the cause was just clear as broad daylight from the South Africans.
Let's finish up on this game by talking about Aiden Markram. He's a fascinating player. Have you ever played in the same team as Aiden Markram?
No, I haven't. But I've heard plenty good things about Aiden. I've always been a big admirer of his batting. I do think that he can create a little bit more time. I think things have to go absolutely perfectly for him to be able to score runs as far as his technique is concerned. I think the fourth day was one of those days for him where just everything that he was doing was working for him, right? And he wasn't trying too hard. His back lift, the timing of his back lift, and the way the bat came down on the ball, when you watch it from that point of view, like, okay, everything's going right now, but it all it takes is that one ball for him where he delays it just a little bit, and then he's caught wanting for it, because he doesn't necessarily have the time as a batter with his pushback to be able to, like, he doesn't really create time with his setup, if you know what I mean. He's not able to create time because his batting is also reactive. He watches the ball and plays it to the extent that he doesn't have an initial movement. The ball's delivered, his hands go up and then comes back down on the ball, right? His hands go up rather than going back and up, right? When you go back and up without an initial movement, you're able to create a little bit time for yourself that Aiden Markram today is not being able to do. I think that's one thing. The minute he adds that to his repertoire as a batter, I have no doubt that he's going to be far more consistent, because he'll be surprised how much time he's able to create by just doing that one thing right.
He's fascinating. I remember when he first came through and he was quite young, and I saw him and I was just like, this is just going to be another guy who averages 45 to 50, and he's going to star for South Africa, and he's going to be a captain. And, I think he captained one of the junior sides as well. Like, we knew a lot about him, and it hasn't quite worked. And he's got this fascinating record in white ball cricket where essentially he's one of the worst strike rotators in white ball cricket. Right. So most players, when they're rotating the strike, most of them average like 70 or 80. And in ODI cricket, he was averaging like 25 or 30 at one stage. And I happened to be commentating with Mickey Arthur. And I put it to Mickey Arthur, and Mickey Arthur's like, I think it's because when he's trying to chip the ball, he has a problem. It might come back to what you were saying there. He has a problem where he doesn't actually play through it anymore, and he stops his hands, and they don't come through. And he said when he's trying to hit a 4, he never has that problem, right? Because his hands come through at the speed that he wants them to come at. And it was a really interesting conversation. And he's not that far away from being that sort of S tier level player. And we've seen the innings, the Cape Town innings, the one in the World Cup where, where he set the record, this innings, we've seen enough to know that Aiden Markram can do it. But it's incredible that he's never been able to do it enough for what is a very smart cricketer. And he's a very good professional as well, bowling and fielding and everything else. It's that last step he's never been able to take.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it often happens with players at this level simply because for you to be successful at this level, you have to be almost stubborn, right? About your own game and say that I'm just going to succeed on my own terms, right? And perhaps it's just conjecture and I'm just speculating. Perhaps that's the whole thing where he's like, I'll listen to everyone, but I'll still do what I want to do and what feels best for me. And I think that's perhaps been why we see him more as a form player than someone who can actually create form, so to speak. He's someone who I truly believe will be way more consistent if he makes that one slight adjustment. But I'm sure there are people in South Africa who've spoken to him about it. I'm sure that Ashwell Prince, who's their batting coach, has probably worked with him. And I think for Aiden to succeed consistently, he'll have to get things absolutely perfect. And after living in the cricketing world for so many years, that is easier said than actually done.
No, exactly. I just want to look at this actually because I think this would be fascinating. Ashwell Prince, for those who haven't seen him, he averaged 41 in Test cricket, and some of that was in the 2000s, but it's still on South African wickets, so that number completely holds up.
Insane, dude. Yeah.
And if you look at him on pure talent, he's not even in the same ballpark as Aiden Markram on the ball striking and everything else. And yet Aiden Markram's averaging 36.5. Now, some of that is just tougher era, but a lot of it isn't because Aiden Markram is still a lot more talented than Ashwell Prince. So it tells you the difference between someone who is, Ashwell, I always used to joke that he was like his ability to he was like the kid in the playground who had like the mittens on him where you just like, he shouldn't be there. He shouldn't be like the most talented player, but getting past Ashwell Prince was always like a battle, right? And with Aiden Markram, we haven't always felt that. But Aiden Markram has that 6th or 7th gear. So someone like Ashwell Prince has never even had the opportunity to look at.
Never knew existed even, right?
Yeah, exactly.
He probably didn't know it actually existed at that point in time. And
we've got a couple of super chats that are about
this way as well.
Yeah, we've got a couple of super chats about South Africa, so I thought we'd bring them up now. Samit says, KG, Nokia, Kotsia, Janssen, McParker, those are tier 1. And then he's got tier 2 backups, Ngidi, Berger, Williams, Patterson. It is an incredible fast bowling lineup that they have given themselves over the last couple of years. And I would also throw in the fact that Shaberi Shamsi is probably on the downslope a little bit now, but Maharaj, Pete, Harmer is actually a real, that's a better spin, best 3 spinners than Australia have, right? Or England, certainly than England.
Harmer's the off spinner, isn't he?
Yeah.
Man, he's so good. So underrated. I mean.
And he's nowhere near this team right at the moment.
So underrated. Obviously, that's because of how the team needs to be structured. But there are some guys in South Africa who, for the life of me, I don't know how they aren't playing international cricket. Who's that left arm spinner who played for Cape Town Indians and batted down at the death? Season? The tall lad.
George someone?
George
Is that the guy? You know who I'm talking about though now. I've got the right guy, don't I?
Yeah, the tall left arm spinner. The tall left arm spinner who bats right-handed as well.
God. Is this when if I just click on the comments, 83 people have just said his name. George Lindy. I was half right. I knew there was a George.
George Lindy. Dude, that kid is so good. He is so good. I don't know how he's not playing the IPL, number one. I don't know how he's not playing for the South African national side. He is a miserly bowler, and he hits the ball like like hitting a golf ball, man. He hits the ball miles. And he's very, very good at the depth. So underrated. And it's just not playing for South Africa. So it's like it surprises me. But I think with the structure that it's at right now, a lot of good talent will also, will go through that phase where they probably won't play as much as South Africa as they deserve to. Which is
wasn't that
unfortunate
long
because I
ago.
think Harmer and this Linde is like really, really good, man.
But it wasn't that long ago that the USA had Andreas Goos. I don't know if you've seen him play, but like you watch him play in associate level and you're like, this guy should be averaging 45 in first class cricket. Like he's so much better than the associate cricket level. And but Dane Pete was going to qualify for them, right? Like they've got players that are there. And all those guys who went to New Zealand. I mean, we talk about the Colpacks. We don't talk about all the players like Obe Pinar and all those sorts of guys that went over to New Zealand to try and make their way. It's a ridiculous.
They've all followed Devin Conway.
Well, they probably followed Grant Elliott. Was he the first major one?
Perhaps, yeah.
Was it Morne van Wyk? He was another one as well. So they've had a couple of guys go through. So batting, they have struggled a bit with batting of recent times. They haven't produced the same level of batting, but overall, there's so much talent out there, right? So South Africa should be good for a while here. Samit says, after the Fab Four era, time to call the Terror Trio for Bumrah, Cummins, and KG. Why is Rabada the least hyped? Second to none, 320 wickets at 21, better than Pat, and a strike rate. Is he strike rate 37? I thought it was 38 or 39. But anyway, it's very, very good. Is it because he's from South Africa and not from England, Australia, and India? I'll let Robbie answer that.
No. You answer it. I was like, my eyes are going in circles when I was reading that question.
I think what happened is, if you go back through recent history, he comes on the back of Dale Steyn, Morne Morkel, Vernon Philander, Alan Donald, Sean Pollock. And so at this stage, there is a bit of they've got another really good bowler. I'm not even mentioning Intini or, I don't know if I mentioned Philander in there as well. Like, they've had so many.
Philander,
I think that
so good.
Yeah. So there's an overlap of that sort of level of greatness where you kind of just take it for granted at a certain point. Also, I think that Cummins' story is ridiculous because of the, 5 or 6 year break, of being the teenager when Australia doesn't even pick teenagers and then coming back. And he's the captain, so it's a little bit different. And Bumrah is already probably the greatest all-format bowler that we've ever had and is averaging less than 20. So if Rabada was doing this a couple of years ago, because I'll ask you this question. When Steyn was coming around, there was always a bit of Steyn versus Anderson, but no one really took it all that seriously because they were like, Anderson's great, but Steyn's still on another level. Whereas in Rabada's case, he's probably on the level of the other two guys, but not above it.
Yeah, 100%. I think one of the things also with Rabada is that I think he took a little while to kind of mature into the bowler that he is today. I think initially when he came through the ranks, he was fiery and then he played all formats, but you could see after a certain point in time through his career, he started focusing a lot more on red ball cricket. I still remember the 2018 series against Australia. That's when you suddenly said, oh God, this guy is more than just a handful, right? With the red ball. He's not just a good bowler, but he's a great bowler, in red ball cricket. And I think we saw the aggression also from him as a bowler for the first time. Otherwise, he's a very subdued character, isn't he? He doesn't say much. He's soft-spoken. He just kind of goes about his business a lot like Josh Hazlewood. But now there's so much more fire, right? You can see the personality coming through. And I think that he's well respected in the cricketing circles for sure. Just perhaps not the kind of attention that the others get. But I don't think it's because of South Africa. Or I don't know. As in, they'd probably be in the best position to answer it because
it does play a bit of a part, though, doesn't it? Like, Williamson is the least talked up of the Fab Four. You can but with Rabada and Williamson, you could also make an argument that the other three in that case, or the other two are slightly better than them, but they're all in the same tier. So, being in a different market does play a part. Jimmy Anderson ended up living up to the hype that England had for him.
Can we actually put it like this, where some people just fell into the tier and these guys like the Williamsons and Rabadas had to earn that tier?
Yeah.
Right?
No, exactly. I'll give you a perfect example of this, which was when Babar Azam came through and made all those runs. All the Pakistani fans wanted him to be added to the Fab Four, and I was like, whoa. The Fab Four is because they're all the same age, right? So it's not.
Yeah.
He can't just join it. Like no one else, no one could join it, right? But also, if he was from a smaller market, even in Pakistan, it would be much harder to hear that noise. Well, you hear that noise from the bigger market teams, right? Like there's going to be more of that sort of stuff. And when we talk about the greatest bowlers of all time, Richard Hadley's usually on the end of that conversation. But if you actually do a deep dive into his numbers, he maybe should be at the other end. But his country is so small, they don't talk it up as much. So I do think there is an element of that because we're talking about, you and I, we're on social media. Well, you're on social media. I barely go on it anymore. But when I used to be on social media, who are the loudest? It's the fans who come at you the most that you end up, reacting to the most. And so Rabada has never had the same level of push that I think that Cummins and Bumrah have had. And some of that is just the country he's from.
Yeah, to a certain extent, also because of the whole conversation that goes around South African cricket with, I think even amongst the players or even amongst the the fraternity, there's a whole thing that we're not achieving what we can achieve for the potential we actually have because of the way the structure is built, right? And oftentimes that can be a burden on the people that it's actually supporting, I think Rabada has carried that for a large part of his career as well, and that can have an impact on you as well, and the personality you possess, and I think that's probably played a small role as well.
I also think that if you look at Stark and Cummins and Bumrah, and Anderson definitely fits into this, they weren't always in every format, or they weren't always playing in every series, partly because of the depth, which isn't a South African issue, but also within Rabada's such, and I think this is kind of what you meant there, he's such an important person politically for South African cricket, right? Like he really is an important person for the country, right? As much as he is for the cricket team. And there are many times where I've been looking at his workload, just going, give him a rest.
Yeah. And I think the fact that there weren't more of his caliber is why he was carrying so much more of the burden just by himself, and that can weigh you down.
Yeah, exactly. Jack says, Temba
nice
might
question,
not be the best. Yeah. Temba might not be the best tactician, but has always been a proper leader. The way he handled the de Kock incident during the 2021 World Cup was very admirable, given the context of what it meant, especially in South Africa. Also, that was the World Cup in which he...
What was that incident?
That was when de Kock wouldn't take a knee for the Black Lives Matter thing. But it wasn't just that. I think I'm right in saying it was the same tournament where where Temba dropped himself from the team, didn't he, towards the end of the tournament? Like that. We've talked about that before. That's a big thing to do, right? It's a hard thing as a leader to admit that the team's better without you than with you. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's a tough thing to do, and I think Temba is someone who's made a lot of the tough calls, right? I think he's done right by South African cricket, right? And he's tried to be that, and I think that can actually take a toll on you and give you a lot of perspective, and then it kind of puts into perspective, and you kind of internalize a lot of things, and you're like, okay, how do I want to represent myself in this whole situation? How do I want to exercise the power that I actually possess at this point in time? And I think he's always kind of taken the road less traveled, and he's done it with a lot of dignity and with a lot of class, and that's something so likable about Temba, right? And also I think just the size and the amount of fight that's there in the for a guy of his stature. There's a big fight, and he's got the kahunas when it comes to putting it all out there on the field. He'll put his body on the line. He won't pull punches, and very seldom do you see him expressing his full range of emotions. And I think we've been lucky to have been able to see that once in a while, to be honest.
World Test Championship starts again now. Tomorrow morning, I think, which is
it
Bangladesh, Sri Lanka.
No, not tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it...
Oh, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. Bangladesh.
Yeah, I think that's the first test.
See, I'm only thinking about the.
Yeah, no, of course you are. You're the issue here with why Rabada doesn't get more respect. But but it starts tomorrow. I should say I've got a piece coming out of it. I don't know if we'll get it before this test series starts, before England starts. Certainly won't get it up before the morning. But it does look like Australia and India have the best chance again, even with the slightly weakened sides that they both have at the moment. England, a lot has to go right for England, and there's no other team that I think has a great run that can be able to make it from there. But obviously the big series is India-England, which starts at the end of the week. I'm not at the first test. I'm at all the other test matches, but I'm going camping for some reason.
Where are you at the first test match?
I'm going camping. I don't camp.
How come?
Because my wife somehow tricked me and I wasn't listening. I like cities. I don't really understand camping. Hotels are great. I've always enjoyed even hostels, motels. I like something near a road. I don't understand why I have to be near a creek, in trees.
Yeah, nothing like a porta potty, yeah.
Exactly. Why would I want to do that to myself? So I'll miss that one. I'll be around probably for the end of that test, but not for the start. You want to talk about Sarfaraz a little bit. He's made so many runs this year. And also, as we said before, these wickets this year are a little bit different than sort of what we would consider a traditional English wicket. The way that they are playing at the moment, I think, would suit someone like Sarfaraz more rather than having to go on with English specialist players.
Well, yeah, and here's another guy who's had to earn his stripes, right? This guy's another guy who has not had it the easy way at all. And when the opportunity has come, it's come after 3,000 domestic runs in 3 years, right? And when the opportunity did arrive, as in he performed as well, and still away from India, he hasn't really gotten off the blocks yet. But I think if India want a solid middle order bat, he'd be one of those options as far as I'm concerned. Because I think now when the opportunity comes, he'll put his life into it, man. I don't think he'll leave anything, to spare. I think he'll just go out there and give his absolute best. And that's what you want in Test cricket. You want guys who'll go out there and put everything on the line. And I hope the team management see it, and I hope that they can find a spot for him in that middle order, lower middle order, because I have a feeling he'll score runs, to be honest.
But where do you bat him?
Oh, that's a tough one. Yeah.
I mean, that's the issue. It's one of those things where both of us would say on talent, we both agree. And look at the pictures and his form, like all three of those things, neither of us have any issue. The problem is at the moment is specifically where you end up with him in this lineup. And I don't think that's as straightforward a
Who
conversation.
was the number 5, by the way? Who are we discussing at number 5? My number 3 was number 3 was Karun. Number 4 was Shubman.
Yeah.
Number 5 was... Who was number 5, bro?
Now, is that Rishabh? Has Rishabh been batting 5 or has he been batting 6?
6, right?
Yeah.
So then we went 6
I
Rishabh,
can't remember
7... 6 Rishabh, 7 Nitish Kumar Reddy, 8 Jadeja, and then 9, 10, 11.
So you can pop him in. So you're saying in that situation, you can just pop him in at 5, and you're now hoping you haven't forgotten anyone else.
Well, yeah, I am hoping I haven't forgotten anyone else, but
we have forgotten someone. So where does that mean? Sai doesn't play, probably.
Sai.
Yeah.
Ouchie.
Thanks to Arco. So because that's the thing, I think either Naya or Sai can't play in that situation once you bring Sarfaraz in.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Tough one. Yeah.
Why don't they just bite the bullet and just bring Shreyas Iyer in as Ayosh just to make it more confused? Do you know what? India's a lot more talented. They're batting than Australia, but it's a similar kind of thing that I do think there is a lot of guys that want to bat in a similar kind of position that is causing some issues. So you're already going to have people around. Well, I think Shubman Gill, Shreyas Iyer probably both should be number 4, right? You could maybe make
Not necessarily. I think Shreyas can be 5.
okay, but then you got Sarfraz who should be 5. So we're straight away we've got 2 guys there. Do you see what I mean?
See, again, depends if you're playing in India or abroad. So in India, you'd have Sarfraz 6, Rishabh 7, and then you have the spinners, and then there's that as well. You could put Pant in at number 5, and then have this guy at 6, and either or. But there's so many different opportunities, right? And I think this is where it's going to be pretty competitive for the Indian lads, the Indian batters. They'll get that 3 or 4 opportunities. If they don't strike rich, they will move on. And I don't think the likes of Sai Sudarshan, the likes of Shreyas Iyer can be kept away from red ball for too long. Thanks, Ayush. Both worlds colliding. Love it. Yeah. Do you see any future? Yeah, of course. Without a doubt, man. I think his game has changed exponentially. And I truly believe that he has a lot to offer for red ball cricket. And I think this cycle for India will be a critical cycle. This World Test Championship cycle. Blah, blah, blah. This World Test Championship cycle will be a critical one, because I think it will put into perspective in which direction India is going as far as leadership is concerned, as far as batters are concerned, and India is looking for the next superstar, right? And they're looking for a young superstar, and whoever can take that spot up and snap it up as quickly as possible can play for India for a decade and a half easily.
India is a 33% chance of winning this test match, according to the bookies at the moment.
Oh, is it?
High or low? Yeah.
That's a little low, I'd say.
Yeah, I thought so.
What if Bumrah's playing this test match? 135, I think he'll play.
I mean, I get it. I haven't looked at the weather. I don't know how much of the draw plays into that, because obviously the draw can sometimes warp the odds a little bit as well. The other thing that we talked about briefly before, which I think is quite interesting, is Lyon, Shoaib Bashir, Sikandar Raza, even Aiden Markram's taking wickets, man. Again, I talked about how dry it is and how things are changing. You can certainly see a situation where Ravi Jadeja has a much bigger impact on this series than we thought.
Yeah, I'd be happy for him to do so. Like, he's 36 now, 37 now. I don't see him touring England for test matches anytime soon again. It's probably his last tour to England as a test cricketer. So he'd want to make it a memorable one. So, he'd be leaving everything on the line as well, I think. So hopefully he gets to play all matches. I'd love for Kuldeep to play matches as well, because I think he's ready to go. But that's the problem with India, right? We always have a problem of a plenty and so much talent and, so many solid cricketers that you feel remiss for each one of them not getting an opportunity.
No, exactly. All right, we've got a couple more super chats.
What would your playing 11 be, dude?
I think, didn't we come up with it the other day? I think I don't think this is the summer of Nitish Kumar Reddy at the moment. I don't know. Looking at the pitches, there might be a couple of pitches where I would play him, but at the moment, I'm not sure how much that is his bowling is going to help this summer. Right? Like, I just think that there are other options available to him. Having said that, I thought VR Mulder bowled okay at times, but if VR Mulder was bowling on day 3 and 4, and he was bowling, I think, at times on day 3 and 4, I don't think it would have been particularly helpful. And Australia didn't use Bo Webster that much. I think it's telling you the kind of conditions that we're seeing over in the UK a little bit. So I don't think they need to go all in on the 5 bowling attack unless they think it's going to give them the best chance of winning. And I'm not sure that he gives them the best chance of winning at the moment. I love the idea of Jadeja batting at 7 with someone like Jadeja batting at 7 with Washington batting at 8. If they want to go in that,
nice
or
well.
picking
that doesn't sound half bad.
or just picking the best 4 seamers and not fucking around and just going, we have the world's best number 7, right? We have heaps of talent up the order. It's your job to make runs. It's the bowling unit's job to take 20 wickets. Let's not piss around and have a little bit of both, because I think sometimes against Australia they kind of did that, don't you think? They kind of didn't commit to taking the 20 wickets 100% because they were worried about making the batting lineup longer. It's like, well, you end up weakening your side by accident at times by doing that.
Yeah, because you have to get 20 wickets to win a test match, so you want to make that as strong as possible. And to be very honest, there are guys out there in that squad. For me, Karun Nair is is not a muck with the ball. He can bowl pretty decent off spin. And he's always antsy about bowling off spin. And he's always someone who's like, give me the ball. I want to do something with it. You know, he's one of those lads. He's like, I'll get you
Is
wickets.
he
I'm better
better
than
or
anybody
worse
else.
than Aiden Markram with the ball?
I'd have to say he's got this uncanny ability. I don't know how much I can compare him with Aiden Markram, but he's got this uncanny ability of taking wickets every time he's bowled, man. I think it's just he manifests it because he just believes he's so good. Like it just kind of happens for him. And it happens for him whether he's like, if he's bowling on seaming conditions and we want someone, and we have only 3 fast bowlers and we want someone to bowl quick, in first class cricket, either be him or me who'd bowl, and if he bowls, and every time he kind of bowl even medium pace, he'd find a way to get a wicket somehow, you know. And then you always wondered, like, how's this guy doing it? So he's got this uncanny ability to just get wickets, you know. So I wouldn't put it past him to put his hand up and say, give me the ball, I'll bowl you some off spin if it's required.
Finally, a Indian top order player who will actually bowl, which is good fun. A throwback to gentler times in cricket as well. We've got a couple of super chats to go that we will definitely get to, but we've got some, what are these things called again? Memes?
Memes? Oh, we got memes.
I feel like we've got a meme. I can't read it. In 2019, when Faf was losing tosses after tosses, he brought Bavuma into the middle for a change of luck. They turned out to be a change of fortune for South African Test cricket. I like that. I mean, you know, find your luckiest man and give them the coin is a good way of going about it. Ranjiv says, greatest ever Test captain Grace Smith came out of the commentary box and now watching the team winning the World Test Championship final in the closest point possible. So happy for all the South African players and fans. It's worth noting that I was there. I was right next to kind of where this... how well do you know the Lord's press box? Have you been in there before?
Yeah. I haven't been in there.
I'm kind of on... Yeah, I was kind of on the back corner where all the TV guys have to keep coming back through. And I remember that Smith and KP came down together when there was about 10 runs to score or whatever it was. And they're sent down there on purpose. That's on purpose, obviously. That's a TV production decision. It's not like Graham Smith's like, get me out there. That's how the job works. But I remember that Smith went to get the lift and KP went, no, we don't have time. We have to go on the stairs. And you could actually hear Smith groan a little bit because it's quite high. Like there's a lot of stairs that you have to go down. I say this as a man much different. But yeah, it was great that they were down on the boundary there. Towards the end.
Yeah.
This time for Africa. This time for Africa. This is story. Biggie mama arrest biggie mama. I
didn't know this song was this long until today, Robbie. I didn't know it went that long. Great.
For all you know, he probably spoke it in some other form of African dialect, if not in the lyrics of the song.
And what are we? On the way into the ground, there were 2 South Africans in front of me, like middle class. You know, well-dressed South Africans, not the drunken ones of the night before, but you know what I mean? They were coming in and they were like, you know, talking really politely to each other. And then one of them just sort of said something. It's in my piece, but I've forgotten the exact lines, but it was, I just hope they don't fuck it up. And you just realize the tension that was within them still. And it was like, I wanted to go over and give them a hug. I'll tell you this, so me and my friends all grew up hating South Africa because they were Australia's main rival in the 90s, right? We hated South Africa. And one of my friends who was the most passionate anti-South African just sent me a message going, I'm actually quite happy they finally won. Like it's incredible. Like it had just permeated through everything. So very
That's because they've been so good for so long, right? They've been so good for like 43 years since they've come back in international cricket. And they were good from the word go. They didn't have to develop into becoming a good side. They were good from the word go. And they were always like a championship contending side. So it always felt like, how is this championship like evading this team? Because one generation after the other were like one better than the other. And then suddenly, when you didn't see as many big names, you felt like the hope was dwindling. But then Temba arrives, whose name actually means hope, and wins it for them. How epic!
No, exactly.
I love it.
Couple more super chats and then we're on our way out. Puff says, just from a purely analytical perspective, does Maxi have any right of the excuse, this is just the way I play, like Pant and Gale do? Because sometimes it generally feels like he doesn't care. You can't ask this to Robbie. You can't ask this to Robbie. He's already got in trouble for talking about Maxi before. I would say from this perspective, you have to understand that if you want someone to play at the ability to score at a strike rate of 180 in the middle overs of a T20 game or a one-day game or whatever, that you can't then have a go at them for when they fail. That is part of the thing that you are actually hiring them for. They should go through periods where they have lots of failures and they have lots of strengths. That's what you are paying them the money for. And I think sometimes we forget that with attacking players, whether it be Sehwag or Maxwell or Afridi or Gale or any of these players. It's like, there's going to be periods where it doesn't work and they know what they're doing. We could all argue that they could play different, but we could argue that Usman Khawaja should be more attacking as well, right? We could argue,
With all
as
due
we did with
respect,
Aiden,
with all due respect, I'm going to
you can't do it.
here.
You can't do it. I know you could do it.
You cannot be comparing Maxwell and Afridi to a Sehwag and a Gale.
No, yes, I
Because
can.
They have.
Look at what he's done in
No,
World
they-
Cups. I'm not in test matches, but I'm talking about in limited overs. If your job is to clear the fence, right? You should be taking more risks than anyone else, and it should look uglier in those situations, right? Like that. I think I think there is this misunderstanding when it comes to attacking batters, right? And that we
Listen, I'm an attacking batter myself, right? So I get what you mean, right? In the middle order, I get what you mean, but my contention about Maxi isn't about international cricket as much as it is about IPL. To be very honest, I think he's a fairly decent player even at the BBL levels and outside of the IPL, right? Yeah, I know.
I knew you couldn't do it. I knew you couldn't do it. The minute I saw that question come in, I knew you wouldn't be. Look, what I would say is, and me and Robbie,
I have nothing against him. I have nothing against Maxi. I think he's a nice guy, and I think he's a good cricketer. I just think he's.
Yeah. I would say there are plenty of cricketers in Australia and in India who would say that he has been overly reckless and is not always as professional as he should be, and we could go on and on about all that sort of stuff. But you also don't play the innings that Maxwell plays without the freedom that he has, right? And that's why I brought up Afridi and those other guys. They play with a level of freedom that even you as an attacking player, you're gearing back a little bit. Those guys, when you go to the edge of the cliff, I think it's a different form of batting, and we have to understand that those are different kinds of people, and that we might not agree with them, and Robbie might say something in the next podcast about him as well. Ratton says, Jared, you said that Dravid was a better player of spin than Sachin, but I have seen him struggling against Warner Murali. He did not pick his dues for a while, and against Ajanta Mendes, he struggled to pick him. He also averaged 77 against spin bowling. There we go. So from 1999, he averaged 47 versus Murali and 72 versus Warner. Varun's been waiting for this question to come up the whole time. I didn't realize this. Look at Varun just loading the crossbow. I don't know if that's a crossbow. I don't know how you load a crossbow. I've never had a crossbow.
That's how you load a crossbow.
I'm going to ask you, test match cricket. I think that he was probably 1 or 2% better playing spin than Sachin Tendulkar was, but I also don't think there's much in it.
I don't think there's a lot that separated the two of them. I just think we desired Sachin to play a lot more aggressively against spin, and then we desired Rahul to be the wall, Rahul Bhai to be the wall against spin, right? Because also the roles that defined it, right? If you're going to compare players like that, there are roles that are defined to these players.
It would have been very hard for both of them to play like Dravid or both of them to play like Sachin if you think about the way the team was composed, right? Yeah, no, I think that's very fair. I don't think there's much in it. I think Sachin's a lot better against pace than Dravid overall, but I don't think there's much between them in spin. Pranav says, issue with Sarfraz and Gambia allegedly leaking. I don't know anything about this. Robbie knows everything. Robbie will tell you everything you need to know about leaks.
Like, I'm you'd imagine that, me as a cricketer has a lot of insight about, Indian cricket. To be very honest, it's the farthest thing from the truth. 'Cause, so which is why when I went on a rant about Mr. Fix It, I had no clue who it was. I genuinely was just like ranting about something like that happening at a time when India lost a test match, and that was the news that came out. For me, it was frustrating that something like that came out. And for me, like from a team perspective, that is the last thing you want to come out, right? So I had no clue about the whole thing. And obviously, conjecture built up that I knew who it was, and it was this or it was that or whoever it was, right? But I don't know about this Sarfraz Gambhir thing, honestly.
I will say this. It's funny to me. Quite often with very famous cricketers, they don't get back to you when you send messages because they get messages from everyone all the time, as you know. Like they
Yeah.
quite often have 2 or 3 phones as well, and you don't know if you've messaged
Yeah.
the right phone. The vast majority
Yeah.
of the time, a very famous cricketer will get in touch with me, will be about something in the news because they don't know who else to go to sometimes as well. So it's worth saying that like Robbie doesn't know everything, but also in this case, he's probably lying.
Oh my God. Like if I have friends like you, I
Wait.
don't need foes. You know that?
I don't have my joke board. I've lost my
Yeah.
joke. I can't
Yeah,
find
just
it.
leave your face out there, buddy. Just leave your face out there.
Thank you everyone for coming on again. We'll be back after, I suppose we'll do after the next test match. Once I've gone camping and been watching the whole test match on MV Play on replay. Robbie will be around. You'll be over in the UK soon to play in your Veterans League as well. So you'll be over here during the summer with the both of us. Thank you to everyone. Remember, like, subscribe. We push this over all the different channels. So find Robbie's Facebook channel and my podcast channels and all these different places. Please support us, and we will be back again after the next test.